Hello makers. Okay, I have finished my CNC machine. Here we are. It's a big beast. It's got a cutting area of about 1200 by 1200, so I can do a half sheet of plywood on here. And I'm going to square it up. So here we go. I'll show you how to do this. Because it's such a large machine, I've essentially, instead of cutting out squares, I'm going to drill four holes in a 1000 mil square, and then I'm going to measure the diagonals to see how square the machine is. So here we go. So ideally you'd put some steel rod into these holes, but I don't have any steel rod, so I'm just going to use a router bit instead. And you can see where I've been squaring this up previously. And now all we do is put a router bit into each of the four holes and measure the diagonals. Now with this, because you're measuring an edge or tangent on a round shaft, it's really hard to get an accurate measurement. So what you want to do is get a straight edge. I'm just using an engineer's, I'm just going to use a steel ruler. And offer the ruler up so that you're perpendicular with your mark. That way you can accurately read off the mark and know exactly where you are. Okay, so I was 0.3 millimeters out on a 1000 mil measurement, actually just over 1000 mils measurement. And that equates to about 0.03%, or just under that, which is a tolerance that I'm happy with. Obviously, if you're 5 to 10 mils out, you're going to need to change that, but 0.03% is pretty good and pretty accurate for the work that I do. However, I have cheated because I've already squared up this machine. But if you haven't squared up the machine, how do you know what changes to make? And how do you know which direction you need to change which gantry? Well, here comes the science. Okay, so before we square up a CNC machine, we need to make sure that both of the Y rails are completely parallel to each other. And in order to do that, we measure this distance and make sure they're both exactly the same. It doesn't matter if it's a parallelogram, as long as this distance and this distance is the same. We can square up the x-axis during this process. So, okay, we've got two parallel y-axes. What's going to happen is that your x-axis, gantry, ideally would be perfectly straight like this. More than likely, it's going to be at a bit of a kilt like this, and I'm going to exaggerate it. It's going to be at a bit of a kilt like this. So it's going to be traveling in this direction. So what's going to happen is that your dots are going to be here, 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 and here. So when you measure that out, you're going to have one side that's going to be much, much longer than the other side. All of these dots should be exactly 1000 mil apart, or whatever your measurement is. So how do we know which direction to adjust the x-axis? Well, if these two dots are longer than these two dots, it means that your x-axis is going to be skewed in this direction. So what you then need to do is move this side back towards 0 to straighten it up. Conversely, if these two lines, if this line is longer than this line, it means your x-axis needs to go the other way. Ta-da! Easy. Now, what happens if these guys aren't straight and if these guys are tilted to the side, but your x-axis is completely straight? Well, it's exactly the same process. your y-axes are tilted, but your x-axis is completely straight. You're not going to unscrew your y-axis, because these guys are bolted and screwed to my table. I'm not going to unscrew this, move it all around, screw it back down again, test it, unscrew, screw it. It's a waste of time, and you're going to end up with your baseboard's going to look like a Swiss cheese. So, what you do instead is you measure your distances again. And now this line is much longer than this line. So what you've got to do is you've got to move this x-axis in this direction. Tighten it all back up again, and now you'll find your x-axis travels. The whole thing will be on a cant, but at least everything will now be parallel with each other. Okay guys, thanks for watching. I hope that was really useful for you and gave you some insight as to how to quickly and easily square up a CNC machine. I mean, look, you could cut squares out and you could cut all sorts of shapes out and measure them, but it's a waste of material. All I've done is use 2 bits of scrap lumber and I've just cut a few holes into it. And to be honest, I can now use those timbers for any other project because I've not destroyed them. So this is a really, really good, easy way of squaring up your CNC machine without burning through scraps or burning through heaps and heaps of timber. All right, thanks for watching, guys. And as usual, pop your comments down. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you've got an easier way to square up a machine, hey, let us know, because I'm all about ease. Thanks a lot. See ya.